It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions. Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Monday? We do, and so do you. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, coming off a great sports weekend, we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host John Riley, and we welcome you to our Monday bonus podcast, Hacksaw's Headlines. This podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you if you've got projects you're thinking of at home or at work or out by the pool. You're going to need materials. If you want ideas, they can be your best friend and consultant too. DIXIELINE Lumber. John Riley, good afternoon. Juggle a lot of balls in the air. There's a ton of topics on the table. We're going a lot of different directions.
Yeah, did you survive this NFL weekend? There was a lot of crazy stuff going down.
I watched an awful lot of football while I was paying attention to all things baseball, and then there's some basketball and some hockey, and there's just not enough hours in a day to cover all this, but we do get it done.
We get it done.
Hey, listen, couple of items. If you like sports, and I know you like sports, I invite you, I urge you, please check my website. You won't believe the amount of information I provide absolutely free every morning. It's at leehacksawhamilton.com. You can check it first thing at breakfast. You'll know all the big stories in the world of sports. And by the way, when you go to my website, right on the homepage, there's an orange box. That's for Hacksaw's Insiders Group. Join our club. You'll get special emails and special offers along the way. You're on social media. I want you to join my Twitter All-Star team on X. Just go to @Hacksaw1090 and follow me because I put a lot of stuff up there. We know you're watching us on live stream. We want you to share, tell everybody you know in your address book what we do Mondays at 1 p.m., Thursdays at 1 p.m., and then we want you to follow and subscribe every time I put something up on the YouTube channel. Like I put 4 things up yesterday, 4 additional things today. Every time something new shows up on the YouTube channel, you get an instant alert. And we want you to give us a thumbs up. Give us a 5-star rating. It really helps us a great deal. And when we're done talking about hot topics on the table, we're going to give you the chance to come in, and you're going to co-host with us. We call it Fans Forum. John, describe it.
Describe Fans Forum. Hey, it's your chance to get involved. You got a question or comment in the world of sports for Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, just drop your take in the live chat on X, YouTube, or Facebook. Will get you involved.
With a lot of things, we're going a lot of different directions. Let's talk NFL football.
Yeah, here we go. The Buccaneers and the Chargers. That was a classic case of chargering.
Surprises virtually everywhere around the National Football League with what happened on Sunday and what might happen on Monday. Let's just walk through storylines. Baker Mayfield was throwing laser rocket shots. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers came into SoFi Stadium. It was like a bleeping Buccaneer home game. There were so many Tampa Bay fans there in the stadium. Mayfield throws for 288 and 4 touchdowns, and when he was not doing that, the Buccaneers stampeded the Chargers, 288 yards rushing. When they got done, Tampa had 505 yards in offense, scored 27 points in a row in the second half, and destroyed everything the Chargers attempted to do. It was stunning. Justin Herbert's interception streak ended. He had thrown 357 passes in a row without a pick, and then he got pounded and he threw enough for grabs that was intercepted and taken back. It was a terrible day for the Chargers. And same old problems have surfaced. They can't score in the second half. They had too many 3-and-outs in the second half. 6 possessions in the second half without a score. Well, Tampa was scored on 5 straight possessions along the way. And then at the end of the day, all Jim Harbaugh could say in one of his shortest press conferences at all, I guess none of the tent revival services he went to ever came up with how to deal with this type of adversity, because he said, this is adversity. Now we'll see how resilient we can be. Meanwhile, Todd Bowles, the head coach of Tampa Bay, first place Tampa Bay Buccaneers, said December football is about running the football. He did. His opponent, the Chargers, did not. He says it's about making plays down the field. His quarterback did. The Charger quarterback could not. Chargers are really battered. And now, coming off this atrocious pounding, they got to play Thursday night against Denver. And Denver's got 9 wins. Can you believe Denver has more wins than the Chargers have? Denver, with the rookie quarterback that had a lot of problems early in the season under Sean Payton, has got 9 wins this season. To me, absolutely stunning. So, John, that was the first upset of the week. I knew Mayfield would throw the ball around the yard. I didn't think he'd torch them for 4 touchdowns. What'd you think?
What happened to the Chargers that had the best defense in terms of points allowed, and then the whole thing blew up in the second half? I don't understand it.
Past tense.
Yeah.
Well, here's a stat for you. In the last 5 games, remember when they were 7-3? 7-3, and the world is great.
Yeah, it was. It was good then.
Harbaugh was sales pitching us on culture. My quarterback, this defense.
Yeah.
They were 7-3. Since they played Cincinnati, and coulda, shoulda lost that game, coulda, shoulda lost the game to Atlanta. In the last 5 games, starting with the Cincinnati game, the Chargers defense is 27th in the NFL over that 5-game window.
Ha.
They've been exposed by good people.
Yeah.
They went 7-3 playing nobody, started playing real people, and they got punched in the mouth.
Well, you talked about this, how they had to face 5 teams in a row with elite quarterbacks. And how did they finish? What, 2-3?
And they could have lost, should have lost to Cincinnati, and they got the Christmas gift from Kirk Cousins in Atlanta. So they're just not in a good set of circumstances now. And now they got a short work week, and they got to play Denver on Thursday night. So that's where we are. Tampa Bay trashes the Chargers. Buffalo did what I feared they could do because they're healthy. Detroit is not. And the Bills with Superman at quarterback Josh Allen going to Ford Field and just drill Detroit. Allen, can I say MVP candidate Josh Allen? 362 yards passing, 69 yards rushing, 4 more touchdowns for Superman. Jared Goff was wild, threw for 494 and 5 touchdowns, but they just could not keep up. Detroit's got a massive problem. They lost 4 more players to injuries, major injuries, including 2 more defensive linemen. The Bills are 11-3. Goff can't do it by himself because suddenly the defense has just been destroyed. I don't know that Dan Campbell's got enough people to put on the field to play defensively, much less quality people. Buffalo had 560 yards in offense in Detroit.
Amazing.
So what I feared was going to catch up to the Lions injury after injury, week after week, finally did. Now suddenly Detroit, as good as they are, they could be in trouble because they don't have any players on the defensive side of the football. Big issue there. Philadelphia, they pounded Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh it's got a pedestrian offense. And once they got behind, there was no way to come back against the Eagles. Jalen Hurts, 355 yards passing. His 2 receivers, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, combined to catch 19 passes for 219 yards. He was spraying the ball everywhere against Pittsburgh's secondary. Pittsburgh lives off the run game offensively. They had 32 yards rushing from their running backs yesterday.
Wow.
Russell Wilson just could not do it by himself. And then T.J. Watt got hurt during the course of the game. Eagles have won 10 in a row. Man, are they hot.
Eagles.
Green Bay. Green Bay goes to Seattle. What a performance by Jordan Love. I did mention superstar in the making last Thursday. He puts on another dazzling show. Josh Jacobs runs for almost 100. Geno Smith suffered a knee injury in the 4th quarter. Seattle looks like they could be in real trouble now, having lost their 3,000-yard quarterback. Baltimore Ravens, New York Giants, Lamar Jackson, 360 all-purpose yards, 5 touchdown passes for the Ravens quarterback. So your potential MVP is either in Buffalo or it's in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson doing really well. 445 yards in offense to 236 for the Giants. The Giants are 0-8 at home this season.
Oof.
What a disaster that franchise is. In Miami, Tua, bad day at the office, and Miami's playoff hopes are done. They get whacked yesterday, too, by the Houston Texans on the road. I think the one thing that's come front and center is Miami gets you at home in the Sunshine State, and Miami's not playing worth a lick on the road. Tua, 4 turnovers, 3 quarterback sacks. Got one of his wide receivers really badly hurt when he threw a bad pass, and the wide receiver got blown up on the play. He's still in the hospital with a head and neck injury. And then there's Kansas City, the Chiefs. They did beat Cleveland. That was Jameis Winston being Jameis Winston, the Browns quarterback. 3 picks, a fumble, 5 sacks. Ooh. Kansas City's 13-1, but Patrick Mahomes has a high ankle sprain. They did x-rays on him after the game. He's not happy, doesn't look good. There's no break in the bone, but they don't know if he's going to be able to play next weekend. So suddenly, I keep saying Kansas City is not vintage Kansas City. Now they got a problem if Patrick Mahomes is not Patrick Mahomes, because that means Carson Wentz might be the quarterback for the next couple of weeks, and home field advantage is still up in the air and still in play, because that is Buffalo breathing down your neck with Superman. So those are storylines around the NFL. You couldn't believe how bad the Chargers got beat. I couldn't believe how bad they got beat. They got beat. What about the rest of the teams?
That Lions-Bills game was something. I mean, how many, all these points, it was like fireworks. The thing that is interesting is you're saying the 2 MVPs could be Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen. Well, Lamar Jackson was a Heisman Trophy winner. He was like, had all these accolades. Forget Josh Allen came from Wyoming, and he barely got recruited out of high school. And to see what he's turned into is incredible. The thing that I'm just so amazed by is that not only can he throw the ball downfield, but when he runs, he's different. Obviously Mahomes can kind of wiggle and squiggle his way through. Justin Herbert can run, but not like the way Josh Allen runs.
He runs like a tight end.
It's like a freight train going down the track, and he takes these huge strides, and it's just incredible to watch the athleticism on that guy. So wouldn't it be a thrill? I mean, Buffalo lost those 4 Super Bowls in a row in the 90s. Maybe this is the year. And we kept thinking the Lions, maybe this was their year, but maybe the Lions aren't going to be in trouble.
Well, the Lions are in trouble because of injury, and Buffalo has just grown greatly because Josh Allen stopped turning the football over. New offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey's done a good job refining where he's putting the ball, what he sees, etc. He's a very different quarterback than, say, he was a year and a half ago. So, all things NFL, you got an opinion on what happened to the Chargers? I mean, do you buy my theory? I wrote a column on it today on my website. You should, if you're a Charger fan, a lover or a hater, read my one man's opinion column about what I said. But do you buy my theory that, Harbaugh has sales pitched us all, and look what's happened in the last 5 weeks? And maybe the phrase we start referring to the Chargers is playoffs, one and done. Comments, fans forum chat box is open. You want to talk about some of these other storylines, other teams in the NFL, feel free to join us. John, next topic on the table. This is off the field.
Yeah, and more NFL talk. Who got in trouble?
Well, I wouldn't say in trouble, but there is troubling news. Let's start with what I think is a really sad story. Legendary wide receiver Randy Moss is very ill. Randy Moss is recovering from major cancer surgery, a 6-hour procedure, cancerous tumor around his liver, not inside, but after the surgery, radiation, chemo. It's going to take him months. He says he will win this fight. Obviously, he's been sick for a while, and he announced just a couple of weeks ago that he was stepping away from ESPN TV. So everybody thinking about Randy Moss because this is a big fight he's got. Raiders, Mad Max, gone for the season. Period, exclamation point, end of just a horrific season of troubles for the Raiders. Max Crosby's having surgery on his ankle. He'll miss the rest of the season. They have no quarterback. They have no running back. They traded their wide receiver. They lost 3 of their top defensive linemen the first half of the campaign. Now they lost their ace, Max Crosby. He's gone. 10 years ago, Odell Beckham made an unbelievable catch for the New York Giants. If you Google the video, Odell Beckham Jr. one-handed catch, most amazing thing. He's lived off that catch for a decade. He's hardly been a contributor. Couldn't stay healthy. When he's been on the roster, he doesn't catch a lot of balls. Miami just released him. So this is the 3rd straight team he's been on that they said, bye-bye. Odell Beckham has made a life out of that one-handed catch and just hadn't been the same player since Beckham released in Miami. And a really sad note, He was one of the first great personalities who was a referee. Jim Tunney has passed away at age 95. This is one of the legendary head referees in the NFL, dating all the way back to the 1960s and 70s. This is before refs became personas, but he was one of the really great ones. He worked the Ice Bowl game in Green Bay, Dallas. He's worked Super Bowl after Super Bowl. He's in the Hall of Fame. Special gentleman. He just passed away at the age of 95 in Pebble Beach. So a lot of stuff off the field around the NFL. John?
Yeah, Randy Moss, I remember when he first said he had a health issue, he was kind of coy about it, wasn't offering detail. I thought it was something with his eye. And now it's the liver. It's tough. I just remember Randy Moss, when he played athletically, he was just tremendous as a player, but he always had kind of a little bit of a bad reputation character-wise. But since he's been on the NFL studio shows that he does, I can't remember what network, he does a great job. I mean, he's a good dude. And I find myself rooting for him, to be successful as a commentator. But yeah, I mean, gee whiz, getting chemo, and that's a tough go.
Yeah, he says he's cancer-free, but 6 hours of surgery on your organs, that's pretty significant. You are right. He came from the backwaters of West Virginia, from poverty, and he was kind of a bad character, and he was supposed to go to Notre Dame, and there was all kinds of stuff off the field in the streets when he was growing up, and ran West Virginia, and Notre Dame pulled the scholarship. Anyhow, he wound up at Marshall. Was about the only place he could get into, and he played in Marshall, and he helped turn that program around when they brought it back from the plane crash, and they became a 1AA power because Randy Moss and Chad Pennington and Byron Leftwich were part of that resurrection. And then he went to the NFL, and there was an attitude with him, and there was a style, but God, he was a great receiver, and he moved around team to team, finished up with New England. I think Parcells had a great amount of investment in Randy Moss as a person, in addition to being a player, and then Belichick. So there's a hell of a lot of people are rooting for Randy Moss, and he changed as a person. He grew up. His son, Thad Moss, was a big tight end, I think, at LSU. Has been in and out of the National Football League, so he's facing the challenge. How about the Raiders and Max Crosby? What a horrific period, exclamation point, to a terrible season.
Well, they're on NFL Monday Night Football tonight, right?
Yes.
Aren't they? Yeah, just a disaster. I mean, you've talked about Antonio Brown might be on the hot seat here. I don't know.
Pierce.
Excuse me, Antonio Pierce. Yeah, different guy.
Antonio Brown is already out of the NFL. Antonio Pierce might join him.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that all shakes out. It's interesting you're talking about the referees. And what was the gentleman's name that passed?
Jim Tunney.
Jim Tunney.
Back in the day.
I remember that name. But there's all the NFL refs, the one dude I always remember, his name is Ed Hockley.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you remember because he had the guns, with his biceps and everything. And I remember there was a Charger Broncos game where something went terribly wrong with Ed Hockley on a call. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he botched something, and then he tried to talk his way out of it with a hot mic. But he was a very, very good referee. Jim Tunney was the first of the great ones, and that's way back in the day.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. It's good to show some respect for these guys that have turned the NFL into what it is now. Now, off the field, there was another story about one of the Niners that was refusing to play. What's going on with that?
His name is Devondre Campbell, and in that Thursday night game against the Rams, they had injuries. Jerry Greenlaw was first game back. He kind of ran out of gas. He had the Achilles rupture last year in the playoffs, and he needed to come out. And Devondre Campbell had been removed from the starting lineup, so Greenlaw would be the starter. Devondre Campbell refused to go in the game. And there was the discussion with him and Kyle Shanahan in the midst of the game. John Lynch, the general manager, came down from the luxury suite and ordered him off the field into the dressing room. And then post-game, tone of conversation is, why the hell would this guy do this? And Kyle Shanahan said he'll never play for us again. They suspended him this morning, the rest of the season. He's forfeited all of his signing bonus money by virtue of insubordination, if you will. And worse, his teammates went public and just shredded him.
Wow.
The tight end, George Kittle, who was kind of the mouthpiece leader of that team, said, you owe this franchise, you owe these players in this room an apology. Own it, and then get the hell out of here.
So he was just angry that he was no longer the starter.
And he refused to go in the third quarter when Greenlaw, first game back, was gassed.
Yeah, I mean, what the hell? I mean, there's a common bond amongst all those guys, in the locker room, and they got to back each other up. I mean, it's imagine how hard it is to get to the NFL, and then you get there and you refuse to play.
And it's on a 4-year contract. And they're voiding the other 3 years, which means the signing bonus goes away too.
Yeah. Well, he gets getting what he deserves.
Unbelievable. So those are all topics in the NFL. Feel free. Off the field, you got an opinion, you're invited to join us on Fans Forum. We go from NFL football to what's on the other street corner.
It's college football, the Heisman Trophy Award. That's a spectacle of an event, isn't it?
Oh, it really is. It's really cool. Okay, full disclosure. I mailed my Heisman Trophy ballot in. I said last week, this is why they put erasers on pencils. I changed my mind probably 4 times during the course of the college football season. There were other guys that were red hot that I thought be finalists that hit a wall, didn't have good seasons, etc. So I made changes down the end. When I got done, I voted for Ashton Jeanty from Boise State because of the productivity every week of the season. I mean, he's at 2,500 plus yards right now, and he plays in his bowl game. He's going to break the all-time single-season rushing record, and he's done it against everybody. All the tough non-conference schools I played, including Oregon, he had all these 200-plus yard rushing days. I gave it to him in a very close decision over Travis Hunter. Hunter's spectacular season. 14 touchdown catches, 4 pass interceptions, 90 receptions on the season, over 1,035 snaps as a two-way player, a clone of Deion Sanders. I really liked Hunter, but I like Jeanty too. They probably both deserved it. If I could have split my vote, I probably would have done it. The third one was Dylan Gabriel. Somebody's got to be the quarterback, but maybe he got penalized because he had so many good players around him. He hardly got any first-place votes, despite a record-setting season, busting all the passing records in the NCAA for a career and what he did in a single season at Oregon. So those were the top 3. Travis Hunter got 552 first-place votes. Ashton Jeanty got 309, and Dylan Gabriel only got 24 first-place votes. So if I had turned my ballot over to you, how would you have ranked them?
Well, I mean, first of all, I agree with you that they're those top 3. If any one of those 3 got it, I wouldn't have been angry at all. I mean, they were very deserving. Now, I went with Travis Hunter just because of the two-way and the dynamics of what he brings to the table. But Jeanty, it seemed like on social media, people felt that he deserved it. They feel like it was like Marshall Faulk getting screwed over again. It was kind of a similar vibe. And you said he's about to break the single season record for rushing. Is that the record that Donnell Pumphrey set a few years back?
No, Donnell was career. This is single season. He's about to break the Barry Sanders Oklahoma State single season record.
Okay.
I mean, it's just phenomenal. And I give bonus points to Jeanty. He was tampered with. The whole world tried to get him to transfer. He stayed. And agents called to represent him to go to the NFL. He stayed. He's graduating. Now he looks like a man playing against boys. He's going to be a very fine NFL running back. He's going to be maybe a top 5 pick. So, and I didn't have a problem with Travis Hunter. He's part of the whole circus of Coach Prime in Colorado. But to do what Travis Hunter did for 2 straight years, play offense and defense, and aside from when he hurt his shoulder, he never came off the field. So that was impressive. I wish I could have had Heisman, but you can't split your vote.
I remember when Coach Prime came to Colorado and he was bringing his son. And you're like, oh, here we go, nepotism. But then they were saying he had this other guy that played 2 ways. Yep. And you're like, oh, this is like a Shohei Ohtani of college football. And he was legit. This kid was legit.
He was supposed to go to Florida State, and he decommitted to go with Coach Prime, Neon Deion, to Jackson State.
But, I loved everything about his speech, his mom talking about him at the award presentation. I love the fact that he had Coach Prime and all these celebrities there, rap artists and everything. It's a, like you say, it's like a circus.
An entourage.
But I love it all. I mean, so I'm really happy for him.
You're always big on French pastry. Okay, we go from that. Let's talk about USC. The defections just continue. This is absolutely stunning. Miller Moss, the quarterback who was a starter in the Holiday Bowl, then for most of this past season, just signed at Louisville. Bear Alexander, their star defensive tackle, out. Gone to Penn State. He's transferred. They've just lost their running back who's supposed to be their star next year, Quinton Joyner. He's transferred out, sent his mail to Ohio State. USC is just an absolute mess from a player personnel standpoint. San Diego State. I'm sorry, John and I totally disagree. The Aztecs lose their starting quarterback, Danny O'Neill, who came here to be the cornerstone of all things that Sean Lewis was going to bring. Danny O'Neill just signed this morning at the University of Wisconsin. We reported on it on Friday. Good kid, played really well, didn't turn the football over for an 18-year-old. I thought showed tremendous composure and a flair of athleticism, but the team around him was not very good. But I got a real problem because he came here because of Sean Lewis. He came here and Lewis developed him into a really quality freshman quarterback. I thought the sky's the limit, and he jumps ship and he bails. And it's a bad sign because Sean Lewis is losing a whole bunch of kids that he brought here. They're in the transfer portal after having 42 kids that he inherited leave before spring ball even started that were part of the Brady Hoke regime. They transported out. So now he's hauling more players back in the transfer portal, which means year two is going to be as big a teaching project. And he doesn't have a quarterback yet. And marquee quarterbacks are coming off the board. And the thing that bothers me is he's getting guys from smaller programs. He's got one true Division I transfer coming in, an offensive tackle, offensive guard from Michigan State. Everybody else he's getting is a lower level Division I AA player so far. They're having a tough time getting marquee type players that are going to change your program. If you got a transfer, a bounce back from USC or UCLA or the University of Washington, I'd say that's how you build a foundation. But he's starting almost from ground zero again for the second year in a row. And I'm disappointed in O'Neill because they invested a lot in this kid and they named him the starter. He earned the job. He kept the job. I thought he played well in adversity. I think he should have stayed. And now he's gone to Wisconsin. So I have a real problem with that. Utah dives into the Mountain West Conference. Utah this morning just signed Devin Dampier, record-setting quarterback, New Mexico. He's gone to play for Kyle Whittingham in Utah, whose team was wiped out. He had 5 different quarterbacks he had to play because of injuries. I would have thought Dampier would have gone to Utah State with the head coach who had just been there 1 year and had left, Bronco Mendenhall. But instead, he's going to the University of Utah. Fresno State. We talk about players defecting all the time. This is bad. They lost their star quarterback, Mikey Keene. He's in the transfer portal. They just went through another coaching change there. He had been a protege of Jeff Tedford. Tedford, of course, forced into retirement just before the season started because of a heart disorder. Mikey Keene was a starter for 2.5 years. He's gone. He's in the transfer portal. Washington State, they're holding their breath. Their star quarterback, Johnny Mateer, who's supposed to come with the Cougars to play in the Holiday Bowl, at this point is not sure what he's going to do. A lot of money on the table. Washington State's gone the extra mile to try to get more NIL money for Johnny Mateer. He's the do-everything, throw-run RPO quarterback. He may go into the transfer portal before the end of the week. And how bad is the transfer portal? 1,800 players in the first 4 days when the transfer portal opened last Monday jumped into the portal. Marshall University, their coach left, Charles Moss, go to Southern Miss. 25 top players jumped into the portal right after he resigned. And the problem you've got, they have not enough players to practice. They don't have enough players for their bowl game. Marshall has pulled out of the Independence Bowl against Army. They're not going to play because they've lost so many players. I don't understand from a calendar standpoint why the NCAA allows the transfer portal to kick in December. Shouldn't you wait till right after the championship game is played in January?
Yeah.
And then have a January into February transfer portal? Because this is absurd. You got players that say, I'm not playing, I might get hurt my NFL chances, or I'm not playing, I'm going to the transfer portal. So I blame the NCAA for the calendar as to where this portal is slotted. The coaches are totally up in arms. Lane Kiffin melted down at Ole Miss on the weekend, saying this is an absolute disgrace that this is allowed to happen while we're preparing to go play in the playoffs or go play in the championship game.
Mm-hmm.
Penn State's star sophomore backup quarterback opted out. He's not going to play in the playoffs. He's in the transfer portal. Why do you have to do this the first week of December? Let it go till January. This thing is so screwed up. So, John, those are hot headlines. You want to talk about SC? I know you're going to argue with me about Danny O'Neill being a bleeping capitalist that you are, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the capitalist Danny O'Neill. No, so he so a lot of angles to this. Number one, I always thought of O'Neill and Sean Lewis as sort of a package deal.
Yes.
But clearly they're not. And now there was a rumor that I saw online that Lewis asked O'Neill to redshirt and kind of build up strength. And this was a reaction to that he was like, screw that, I want to play. I mean, is that true?
I don't know if that's true. Sean Lewis had never answered that question, I'm sure, if you posed it. And if somebody theorized it, no. I find that hard to believe because the kid played 12 games. The kid grew immensely as a talent. Mm-hmm. The kid showed a lot of dimensions that we didn't know how he'd handle as an 18-year-old in terms of grit, in terms of toughness, in terms of playing through injuries, in terms of consuming a playbook. I mean, they didn't go 3-9 because of Danny O'Neill. They went 3-9 because everything that didn't happen around Danny O'Neill offensively, and then the whole defense caved in the second half of the season because they had to play so many minutes. I just think that, he told everybody that, well, I want to be closer to home. Well, you knew coming to San Diego State was a fair ways away from Indianapolis. I understand that. Well, I don't have anybody I'm talking to yet. Yeah, the hell you don't, because he did this on Thursday, and on Friday we talked about it. He was going to Wisconsin to at least visit, and now he signs at Wisconsin just like that. This was all about money, and this is all about getting tampered with. I just think the kid quarterback owed the coach another year because that coach did so much on behalf of that kid to try to build him as a foundation around the program.
Yeah, but the scholarship is only a year by year thing. So he doesn't owe. I mean, maybe morally, maybe you can make a case for that, but legally and, as far as their contracts are considered for scholarships, he doesn't owe them anything. So the fact that if you got an opportunity to go to the Big Ten, Wisconsin, I mean, why would you turn that down coming out of the Mountain West? I mean, I can't blame O'Neill for pursuing it. I would have liked for him to stay. But in the end, I kind of wonder, I mean, he's good, but he's not great. So I don't know how he's going to do in the Big Ten. He's not a terribly big quarterback. No. So we'll see what happens. But the Aztecs, they got Kyle Crum and who else?
Well, they've got to go get guys. I mean, they have the freshman from Long Beach, Milligan, whom they like, but that's an 18-year-old kid, much like Danny O'Neill was. So poor Sean Lewis. For every step he's tried to take forward, he's had all these steps backwards. Now he's losing not only the Brady Hoke group of players that he inherited who didn't want to stay, now he's lost his quarterback, and a couple of other guys that he recruited, his own people are vacating. It's utter chaos.
He's not alone. I mean, every college coach is going through this thing. The other quick comment on the Marshall situation, I agree with you. The timing of the
transfer
portal window is wrong. I mean, imagine if like the Dodgers going into the World Series, Teoscar Hernandez declared free agency and wasn't going to play in the World Series.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same kind of thing. That doesn't make any sense.
And nobody goes to spring football January 15th. So put the transfer portal window, open it right after the national championship game, and have your 20-day window there till February 1st.
Yeah.
Because guys are not in spring football in February. I mean, that usually rolls into March. This thing is so upside down. This thing is, it's so chaotic.
Yeah. I mean, I conceptually, I like the idea that these players can move on to greener pastures. They're not locked in, but they do need to manage the system better.
Okay. All things college football. Who would you have voted for if you had my Heisman ballot? And agree or disagree with me on the San Diego State Danny O'Neill thing. I hope it works out for the kid. I feel bad for Sean Lewis. Quarterback owed that coach another year here in the system after the coach did everything he could to help fast forward that kid's development. Fans Forum chat box is open. Hey, we do sports talk the way it should be done. Agree or disagree, I don't care, but we want to hear what you got to say. So pile in. You want to pile on? Go ahead, beat up John. I don't care. Hey, this podcast on a Monday bonus is brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. Projects, they got materials. Projects, you want ideas? Think Dixieline Lumber. And by the way, you're looking for stocking stuffers for the guy in your house? Think about Dixieline Lumber's gift cards for the holiday season for the guy in your house. Dixieline Lumber, the people we do business with, people we recommend you do business with. We're back here. Second half of our Monday bonus podcast continues. Just a couple of reminders. If you like sports, please check my website. I write on it every day of the week, leehacksawhamilton.com. A ton of sports stories there. Maybe a baseball fan. You might be a football fan. Maybe all you care about is the NBA or hockey. Jump on board. Just check it out every morning because it's posted there. It's absolutely free. Want you to share, tell everybody what we do Mondays and Thursdays at 1 p.m. Want you to subscribe. That way, every time we put something up on the YouTube channel, you will get the alert. Join Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You can do that on my website. You'll get special emails, all the different things we're doing. And when we're done with this podcast, after you've heard everything we have to say about the topics on the table, John Riley's best friends, all 3 of them, will join us on Fans Forum.
Yeah, Fans Forum. All the guys are all piling in. So if you got a comment or question, jump on board. I just want to make one comment. You know, you're talking about all the sports information that we do. I don't know if the folks here that follow the podcast know this, but we have these playlists on YouTube that you could get sports specific content. So maybe you love hockey content and you really don't care about baseball. You know, you can go to the playlist on YouTube and just see the hockey content. And in fact, if you're on Hacksaw's Insiders Group, at the bottom of the email, we have all those icons there for all the sports specific content.
Yeah. Hey, you give me 5 minutes, I'll tell you everything there is in the world of sports on my website. And when you go to the YouTube channel, you can scroll through and find a thing that really interests you the most.
Yeah.
All that as part of what we do on social media. Like I said, we do sports talk the way it should be done. Okay, we go to the second half. High, hard ones are coming.
Okay, we're talking Dodgers, Padres, Angels. I'll tell you, the fans are just digging all this baseball content during the offseason.
Well, the winter baseball meetings were spectacular. Mm-hmm. And what's going to happen coming out of these meetings beginning today is going to be pretty impressive too. Let's talk with storylines. We'll start with the Padres. Jackson Merrill earned $800,000 this past season, near Rookie of the Year. Thought he should have won it, came very close to winning it. He gets $1.1 million in additional bonus performance money.
Hell yeah!
A couple years ago, hell yeah, you. A couple years ago, well, he earned it this time.
Yeah,
he didn't hit 251. Don't say hell yeah to somebody hits 251. A couple of years ago, the union and baseball worked on an agreement, have a bonus pool of money for young players who exceed average statistics. Jackson Merrill, 290, 21 home runs, 20 stolen bases. I mean, phenomenal season.
Yeah, great.
Jackson Merrill gets $1.1 million in bonus money. A part of that is because he finished runner-up also for Rookie of the Year. We're still waiting to see what the Padres are going to do vis-a-vis this roster, that payroll, and whether or not there's a trade coming involving Dylan Cease outgoing or Luis Ariz leaving here and who's coming in return. You know, the one thing I'll say is that A.J. Preller, quote, laid the groundwork for potential deals. Well, the first wave of transactions has occurred with the trades. There's more trades coming. There's still pitching out there that he might get if he has to move Cease or if he has to move Ariz. Dodgers signed a super utility guy. This guy had a couple of good seasons with the Cubs at Wrigley Field, a little bit of pop in his bat. David Bote, third baseman, shortstop, second baseman. He signs with the Dodgers on a 1-year contract. Still out there, but they're not making progress. Dodgers, Jack Flaherty, coming off real strong season with the Dodgers after a good start in Detroit. fully recovered from the arm woes in Baltimore and prior to that in St. Louis. He wants 5 years, $125 million. I don't think the Dodgers are willing to go 5 years for Jack Flaherty, so those talks have kind of stalled. Nothing new on Walker Buehler except that he's making visits everywhere. Atlanta, New York Mets, Boston Red Sox, Detroit Tigers. I was told his asking price is 1 year, $15 million. If I'm the Dodgers, I'd give Walker Buehler 1 year, $15 million. I bet he winds up going somewhere on a 3-year deal because somebody will try to outbid the Dodgers and take him. No progress yet on Teoscar Hernandez. They are stalled. I was told they offered 2 years, $60 million per, which is a nice pay bump from the $23 million. He wants 3 years, $60 guaranteed. So that trade conversation is stalled. Boston still talking about Teoscar Hernandez. Angels back into the free agent market again. This is terrible of me to refer to where the Angels go shopping at Dollar General, but they got another Dollar General pitcher, ex-Dodger and Yankee left-handed reliever Victor Gonzalez. And I had a 3.68 ERA, kind of as a long man coming out of the Yankee bullpen. Angels have just signed him. I think he's the 8th guy the Angels have acquired in the offseason, but there's only one real name recognition guy there that's going to be an impact guy, and that's Kikuchi, who came from Houston. But here's the bigger story. Angels have talked to the Cardinals about Nolan Arenado. I'm led to believe the conversation took place over the weekend. Now, I'm not sure who the Angels have to move. St. Louis is looking for pitching. Who is available from the Angels staff that they could move? It might be the former number 1 draft pick Reed Detmers, who's had some good years and then some off years. It might be the first baseman Nolan Chanel. He might be part of a potential deal for Arenado. Nolan Arenado said he would waive his no-trade clause to 6 teams, included in the 6, because he's from Southern California, the Angels. If the Angels could make this deal and take on that contract, and that they've got money, they got budget space, and Artie Moreno said the budget's going up, they bring on Arenado, that'd be a huge credibility move, I think. But I don't know what the Angels have got that they can use as real trade value because the farm system's kind of negligible right now. And you're not going to trade Logan O'Hoppe. You're not going to trade Neto, although he's recovering from shoulder surgery. I'm not sure what else the Halos got there, but those are names that were mentioned to me, Reed Detmers, as well as Chanel, the first baseman outfielder. You get our Arenado, maybe that's an impact guy, proven track record, and you're only having to pay 2 years of his salary. And by the way, you got the money in the checking account. So that might change the perspective of Angel fan in Orange County towards ownership, because that'd be a nice Christmas present underneath the tree. So, John, thoughts on the Padres, the Dodgers, Halos?
Well, isn't Arenado from SoCal, right?
Yes.
And so that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think the Angels were one of the 6 teams on that he would waive the no trade thing for, right? So that just seems so obvious, but there have been so many other obvious things that Artie Moreno should have done, like sign Blake Snell, and there's a lot of other players, and he doesn't do it. He keeps going to Dollar General, getting these number 4 starters. So I would love if Arenado came here, add some credibility, but then now you're screwing around with it because Rendon played third. Rendon's hurt a lot, and they want to move Rendon to DH. But where would Arenado maybe play first?
Yeah, well, he could play first if Chanel is part of the deal.
Okay. So that makes a lot of sense. It seems like the Dodgers are just waiting to pounce. There's going to be another huge announcement at some point with some of these other players. And I'm sure AJ Preller is, burning minutes on his cell phone trying to work a deal. I've seen a lot of really creative trades from proposals from Padre fans on Twitter. But who knows what's going to happen? I'm surprised that teams aren't really willing to bite on Dylan Cease because he's a really good pitcher. And granted, $14 million is a lot, but it's not a whole lot compared to what these other players are getting.
Except that maybe he's only a 1-year rental. And that's bothersome if you're going to give up a load of players to get a very reliable, tough guy starter, but you only get him for 1 year. Because I swear to you, John, the whole world, I don't think agents are going to sign pitchers to multi-year contracts. Agents are taking my guy to the open market because we just saw the amount of money, the volume of money was given to every free agent pitcher from the aces to the 5th starters. I mean, the cost of pitching is just ludicrous.
Well, it seems like this is Preller's strategy is to flip them the year before their walk year. And so, and I'm wondering if that's kind of becoming more of a strategy where there's always teams that are on the cusp of going from good to great.
Yep.
And they're the ones that would want to, take that risk.
Boston is interested, and Boston's got a ton of young guys. Boston just made that trade last week, and they did not give up any of their core young guys on the 25-man roster when they made that big trade. So Boston still got those guys. Now, is Boston willing to trade one or two of their good young guys at Fenway Park for Dylan Cease and a one-year rental? I was told Baltimore desperately needs a pitcher if Corbin Burns vacates. But is Baltimore willing to take on a $14 million pitcher and give up some of their top young guys to make that deal happen? So suddenly, Cease 1 year left, that becomes an obstacle.
Well, I think a lot of it must be dependent on what Corbin Burns does.
Sure.
Because if Corbin Burns is re-signed by the Orioles, they're not going to take Cease. But if he comes off the market, then they're going to maybe get a little desperate.
I don't think Baltimore wants to pay $20 million, and that's the price tag on Corbin Burns.
And that might be cheap compared to the way the market is right now.
Yeah. So we get that. Those are the three teams in Southern California. Now let's go to the baseball notebook.
Here we go. Yankees and Mets at the top of the list.
Yankees, we told you all along that they had a plan B. If they lost Soto, they would move quickly. Well, obviously, they lost Soto, and what did they do? They went and got Max Fried. What did they do? They traded for the ace closer of the Milwaukee Brewers, Devin Williams, and they did hardly give up anything to make that deal happen. And what is next? Alex Bregman. I mean, if the Yankees finish up the Hot Stove League saying goodbye to Soto and welcoming in Alex Bregman on top of what they already acquired, that's a hell of an offseason for Hal Steinbrenner.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the latest there. Cubs, they're trying to make moves. Cubs are shopping Cody Bellinger hard. Now there's a problem. I mean, they're trying to trade him to lots of different places. They've talked to the Yankees, heavy conversations in Houston, but he's got 2 years, $54 million left. Yankees in Houston say, if you want us to take Bellinger, you got to pay a chunk of that 54. At this point, the Cubs are not in favor of that. We talked about the Arenado situation. He's got $34 million this year, $35 million next year. It's a bone of contention for a bunch of teams. Houston, Astros, the trade with Kyle Tucker. He goes to Wrigley Field. I think it was an awful trade. I don't think Houston got fair value for a young stud power hitting outfielder. Granted, he was hurt a chunk of this past season. That's a really good player, and he's going to Wrigleyville, where if you got power and the wind blows the right way, you can hit a lot of home runs. San Francisco, wow, already signed Willy Adames. Buster Posey is making individual trips to different cities to meet face-to-face with their general managers or their team presidents. He is a real proactive young executive.
Right on.
He is met with Paul Goldschmidt in San Francisco. They are talking to Scherzer. They're talking to Verlander about 1 year rentals with an option for a second year if you have a good first year.
Hey.
So, I mean, he's already got the shortstop in Adames. He's got good young pitching led by Logan Webb. But geez, if he could go into the marketplace and if he could get Goldie for 1 or 2 years and rent Scherzer and Verlander and hope they have bounce back healthy seasons on 1 year deal with an option, he's changed the whole chemistry of San Francisco Giant baseball. So that's interesting. And the last one is the Mets. Let me throw this at you about Juan Soto. You know, he talked about finally why he left the Yankees to go cross town to Citi Field. He said, we're going to the Mets because the Mets can win right now. And then he talks about the roster that's going to be around him. He makes no reference at all to the World Series roster he just left. Do you see anybody in the Met batting order, Juan, that resembles the talents of Aaron Judge? I don't. Do you see any Garrett Cole or Carlos Rodon or frontline starting pitching from Yankee Stadium? Do you see any of that on the Mets rotation, led by Kodai Senga and a bunch of refugees? No. What the hell are you trying to tell the world you think the Mets are about to win? And then he finishes up this one-on-one interview in New York, and he says, He admits, I haven't talked to any of my teammates at Yankee Stadium since the last day of the playoffs. The guy has no relationship with anybody that wore pinstripes. None. He doesn't say goodbye to anybody. Doesn't yak with anybody. And then he also admits, San Diego, yeah, I had a problem in the clubhouse, problem with Manny Machado. Was it Manny's fault? Was it Soto's selflessness, self-centeredness? I don't know. The stuff that comes out of his mouth is so strange. All I know is dude better not hit 246 at Citi Field. And the Mets, they don't have anywhere near enough the talent on the roster that they had in the batting order at Yankee Stadium. And the Mets pitching staff is a far cry away from what the Yankees would run out their starters 1, 2, and 3, and what the Yankees have done in the offseason. So, John, go ahead. Talk Yankees, talk Mets, talk about those other teams.
Well, the Soto information, it doesn't surprise me at all. You know, it's par for the course with that guy. And it just confirms how 2023, with that bad chemistry year when the Padres had all that talent, and, you know, if there was friction between him and Manny, there's probably friction with other players. Yeah, so it just kind of confirms what we've already known. That's just set off huge alarm bells for Mets fans. But, you know, they're sunk. I mean, that contract is signed, and, you know, they're going to have to deal with that for the rest of the term. It's interesting with the Cubs how some years they kind of go all in, and then other years they kind of reel it back, you know. And so this seems like they're in a surge mode. They're trying to add top talent.
Who are they? What's your blueprint? You're correct. You know, dive haul in. You know, they got themselves a great pitcher from Japan last year, and then he got hurt. But when he came back, he was really healthy the back half of the schedule.
Was that rookie?
Yes.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, until he got hurt. And then when he came back, he was out for such an extended period of time. When he came back, he was good. But, you know, are the Cubs all in, or are the Cubs regretting what they did? And now they're stuck with a Scott Boras negotiated Bellinger contract, and they can't find takers for a 2-year, $54 million deal, and they're trying to move him out of there. I don't know what the Cubs are doing. So what do you think about your boy Buster?
It's cool that he's going out on the road and meeting face-to-face people. Yeah. I like that. I mean, it's kind of an old school approach, but he's trying to, you know, probably trying to ramp up, you know, his knowledge and his negotiating skills as part of it. But I love it. And going after like a Scherzer or a Verlander on a 1-year, you know, rental deal. Lately, the Giants have signed a lot of guys to longer-term deals, and most of them have not panned out. So hopefully the jinx is going to be reversed.
Okay, you're a baseball fan. You got a comment on Soto, what he said with the Mets, what he said about the Yankees, what he said about relationship in San Diego. Feel free. Fans Forum chat box is open for baseball fans. We've come through the first wave of free agency, and there's still a bunch of big names out there. We're waiting for the next domino to fall, which I probably think is going to be Alex Bregman, but your comments are invited in Fans Forum. We got other topics on the table to talk about. John's been out in the backyard, making sure he doesn't shoot air balls, but rather three-point shots. He wants to talk hoops.
Yeah, there's a lot of drama going on in the NBA these days.
There's always a lot of drama going on in the NBA. What are you talking about? Storylines. Lakers finally win a game. They beat Memphis. They shut Ja Morant up. Boy, he's so mouthy. He just wears you out. LeBron James played well in his first game back. He's got an ongoing foot problem they're going to have to manage with minutes. Anthony Davis tweaked his shoulder, came out of the game, wasn't feeling good, came back in, wound up with 40 points in the Sunday night win. And Bronny James, who is told you're going to play every game in the NBA G League, scores 30 in his first true start for the South Breeze Lakers. He took 23 shots in 25 minutes. Give me the damn ball.
Wow.
He wound up with 30 points in that first game. Golden State, chemistry. This is interesting. They make the trade. We talked about this last Thursday. They make the trade to get Dennis Schroeder, 18 points a game from the Brooklyn Nets. They got him for next to nothing. They got him by giving up an expiring contract of a player who's coming off surgery. They gave away 3 second-round draft picks. They get Dennis Schroeder, who's going into the starting lineup. And if you think Draymond Green is mouthy, now he's got somebody that talks the same language, because Dennis Schroeder, I think, he's a chemistry guy, and you're glad he's on your team. But if you had to play against him, you're probably really upset.
Right.
I think this is a great trade that could change the chemistry for the Golden State Warriors. Houston, you know, they got all this raw talent. And Ime Udoka, the former Boston Celtics coach who's in his first year in Houston, he's doing a good job, but he's got a lot of young kids. And those young kids are yapping and having a good time and all that. He got fined $50,000 this past week for losing his mind, confronting referees for calls against his kids. But he went off on his kids over the weekend. He told his kids in a closed-door locker room meeting, from this moment forward, you have no friends on the floor. I don't want to see you socializing with the fellas wearing the other team's uniforms. He was really, really upset. And then there's Ja Morant. I don't know. Are you tired of the circus? I know you like French pastry and all that. Ja Morant walked down the bench in a game against Brooklyn, and he started yapping with the Brooklyn coach, and then he started barking at the Nets players on the bench. Almost led to a brawl on the floor. And Ja Morant just subscribes to a different set of rules in society. I mean, he's been in so much trouble off the floor, and he's had so many injuries. He's such a great individual talent, but he wears you out watching all this junk. And the Brooklyn coaching staff in a post-game press conference said, I've never seen this type of disrespect. Who the hell is he walking down the floor in front of our bench, MFing our coach and pointing at the guy sitting on the bench in a Memphis win? Different breed of cat, no doubt about that. John, go ahead, talk basketball.
You know, I'm thinking about Ja Morant, and there's been a lot of guys that have talked smack on the court, and the name that jumps out at me is Larry Bird. I mean, because he would go down and yell at the other team's bench and say, who you got guarding me this time, you know? So this whole thing's been going on for a while. I like the how should I say, the entertainment value of all that, but you'd think that Ja Morant would be kind of taking a little bit of humble pie after everything he went through with the gun charges and all that other
and all the injuries.
Yeah. So you think he would kind of stay in his lane for at least a period of time. The other storyline, you didn't put it up here, but I want to ask you, there's been a lot of talk about the NBA TV ratings that have been in serious decline. Yes. I mean, what's going on there?
They got all these different TV partners. You can't tell me what's on TV in the NBA tonight because there's 61 different channels and you got to subscribe to 38 of them to get access to. I think that's worked against Adam Silver. Now, maybe it's going to change with them leaving TBS and going to Amazon, and there'll only be 3 places where you can watch games. I think that's got something to do with it. The other thing is, I'm sorry, with apologies in advance. And by the way, you need to go practice your 3-point shot because I saw you missing air balls when I came in. I think the other thing is the quality of the game kind of has really gone downhill. I mean, was it last night? Dallas Golden State. Did you hear about this? 143-133. Defense was optional.
Holy crap.
Nikola Jokic had 45 points in the game. Golden State was 27 of 53 on threes. All they're doing is coming down and launching. Wow. Defense. No longer in the vocabulary in the NBA. So to me, the game kind of looks like it's unwatchable. Now you get to the playoffs, you get the best teams. Maybe there's a lot more grit. So maybe that's got something to do with it. Season too long, too many bad teams in the NBA. I mean, you wouldn't break your leg trying to get to the TVs to watch the Portland Trailblazers or some of the really bad teams in pro basketball. So, you know, your Washington Wizards with those draft picks lost 17 in a row. Like I'm saying, I think the game's freaking unwatchable a lot of times. And I like watching the Lakers, but that's not quality.
No, it's not. I mean, it's interesting because I follow the Aztecs almost religiously on basketball, and the defense is such a huge part of their game, and it's what makes the game entertaining.
Sure.
You know, when you're able to get these, kind of, turnovers and breakaways and that sort of thing. Just 2 other quick comments. Number 1 is on the Warriors. I saw a stack ranking. It might have been in one of the NFL broadcasts that showed the top 10 franchise values. And the Golden State Warriors were one of the top 10. And this was amongst baseball, football, basketball, everything. I was shocked by that.
Well, it's the Splash Brothers. I mean, that great run they've had. Safe to use the word dynasty, is it not?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It might not be Red Auerbach's Boston Celtics dynasty, but I'll tell you what, the Splash Brothers, Curry, Clay, Steve Kerr, that's pretty good collection.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a shocker for me to see that. The other final comment I want to make is, did you see Stephen A. Smith and the free throw shootout with Kenny the Jet Smith? And I'd like to see you out there taking some free throw shots, see how you do against some of those guys.
I was a starting guard, high school.
Right on.
I could shoot the rock. Couldn't jump. but slow but white. But
you're like Al Bundy of basketball.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, that's all things basketball. You got an opinion? Feel free, jump on board. Fans Forum chat box is open to talk hoops. We're gonna go there. We're gonna talk puck.
The Ducks made a big deal.
Yeah, big trade. I don't know if this is a good trade. No, I do know. I don't think it's a good trade. The Anaheim Ducks and the general manager, Pat Verbeek, haven't been in the playoffs in a long time, struggling like hell to put a roster together, trades his top veteran defenseman. Cam Fowler gets traded to the St. Louis Blues. He got a second-round draft pick, which is of value, and he got a minor league defenseman who's playing in the East Coast Hockey League. Fowler had been a rock, had been the cornerstone of their blue line. He's in his 15th year in the NHL, former number 1 draft pick, good man. I have no problem, I guess, with the trade because they're ridding themselves of salary space. I have a problem with what they did not get. They did not get a high pick. The number 2 pick might be a high pick. It's not till 2027. It's not next year. They didn't get a veteran forward. They still have all this money that they could have spent that they haven't. So I'm kind of bothered by that because Fowler was a good guy. Maybe Pat Verbeek is just stockpiling assets for whoever the next general manager is going to be. And if that's not bad enough that they get rid of Fowler, they don't get instant help immediately. They lose Trevor Zegras again. 3rd major injury in about a 2-year span. He's the young center iceman who came into the league with such praise, did so well, hasn't done anything because of injuries 2 years in a running. Gone 8 weeks, torn meniscus surgery. So every time you think the Ducks are about to turn the corner, here they come because they do have a collection of really good young players and they have a really young defense. Something happens. In this case, they gave away a veteran defenseman and didn't get instant help. I'm losing my mind covering this. I don't know if there's hockey fans out there. What's your perception of Ducks hockey and the road traveled? You look at the roster and they've got so many high draft picks and they're all playing them, but they're sub 500. I think they're 11, 14, and 4, which means they have won only 11 of the 29 games they played. And they're not going to be in the playoffs again. I just keep thinking they're going to turn the corner with all these kids, and has not happened yet. Do you want to fire a slap shot, or you just want to stand in front of the net and look like a traffic pylon?
Well, it's just interesting because we've talked about how the Ducks are really trying to, transform themselves into a legit, playoff contender. And I've always liked the idea of having a core group of young guys. It makes me think of the Cleveland Indians in the 1990s, where they had a young players that they could have for a long-term deals on longer-term contracts.
Manny, Alomar, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And then you complement that with the veterans. So, they just picked up the other veteran like last week. Mm-hmm. And so it's interesting that they sent a veteran out the door. So they must have confidence in their young players. They're going to be able to outperform Fowler.
But you're trading an established guy who was playing 25 minutes a night. You're trading him and you don't get instant help in return. You're not getting anything till 2027, and that'll be a number 1 pick, which means 2 or 3 years from that. He won't be here probably ready to be an instant guy till 2029 or 2030.
Well, maybe they have some guys on the depth chart they think are going to really have a chance to step up.
Not in San Diego with the Gulls.
But maybe, on the end of the bench with the Ducks.
Well, they're going to have to play because they keep getting rid of veterans. It's a unique thing. It really is. Maybe I'm in the minority, or maybe I know what the hell I'm talking about because the scoreboard does not lie. Yeah. They're a non-playoff team. Last topic on the table before we go to Fans Forum.
Yeah, the high-speed SportsWire. Here we got Tiger Woods at the top of the list.
Yeah, Tiger talking. Tiger, you got to listen to what Tiger has to say. He has just confirmed he had another back surgery. Nerve impingement lower back. That's why he played so poorly and hardly played at all last year. It's his 6th different surgery in about a 3-year window. Now, most of his recent surgeries have been on his knee and his ankle, the aftermath of the auto accident, but he had nerve impingement in his back. He was asked at the press briefing in Florida about the merger talks, LIV PGA, and he openly admitted neither side has been able to come to an agreement how to readmit the LIV players. The Dustin Johnsons, the Koepkas, the Mickelsons, who violated their tour card, went for the payday, disappeared off the radar because nobody watching LIV golf want to come back And the PGA at this point just is not going to open the door, let them walk through the door after they violated their tour card. I don't know if it's going to be money. Something's got to break because both these tours are suffering. He also kind of leaked a message that the LIV is negotiating to become a marketing partner for the Euro Tour, the DP European Tour, which plays in England and France and Scotland, etc., for European players. They're negotiating to allow the LIV guys to play in all their tournaments because these guys can't come here and play in the States except for the Grand Slams. So that's interesting there. And in terms of the Ryder Cup, he indicated that the Ryder Cup is making all this money, and it's time for the Ryder Cup to pay the players who are playing for the flag. There has been a methodology in which Ryder Cup players for the European side and Team USA would get paid a stipend, and the stipend would then get put towards the charity of that specific player. Well, now Tiger's of the opinion we need a lump sum. Some of that money goes directly into the player's pocket. So Scotty Scheffler, Rory McIlroy, they get their payday, and half the money goes to their favorite charity, which makes a lot of sense to me because the Ryder Cup is sitting on an international global gold mine of sponsorship money. So Tiger had a lot of things to say. And John Riley says,
these guys got to get over themselves. I mean, they're holding up this merger because of egos and guys that walked out the door, they don't want to let them back in. Just get over it. They got to bring these guys together.
How are you going to solve it, John? I'm hiring you as the mediator.
As a mediator, I don't know. These guys are in grudge mode. I don't know how to hell solve this thing. But ultimately, it's as the sport decays, that they're going to have a come to Jesus moment where they're going to say, we have to put our grudge mode aside and resolve this thing. So I don't know. It's just bananas to me. Now, with by the way, is it LIV or is it Live Golf?
It's both.
It's both. So with Live Golf they're losing money hand over fist if you just look at Live Golf on a standalone basis, obviously subsidized by oil money and everything else. But how long will the Saudis continue to prop up a losing financial proposition?
That's why the public Saudi fund, the investment fund, went to the negotiating table with the PGA Tour to try to solve this and make it a global sport where the PGA would control the tournaments and the Saudi fund and its LIV people would do the marketing arm. But they just can't come to a middle point. Scheduling, how do we interact with the LPGA Tour? Because now there's been a lot of conversation. Would like to have the LPGA women be part of this, and maybe some really creatively funded international global tournaments for men and women simultaneously.
I like that.
So do I. But at the end of the day, we got this thing with these guys there's 36 of them, I believe, who breached their tour card, went and took blood money, and now expect to be welcomed back.
Well, they've often said they want to have some sort of a penalty they have to pay. They come back and kiss the ring of the PGA, but maybe they can just modify that and just make it a nominal amount of a penalty fee, and let's just move on.
$1 million. Just give me $1 million.
$1 million? I mean, that's a lot of money, but
they made a lot of money to go abroad.
Yeah, but some numbers got to work.
Okay, that's where we are. You're a pro golf fan. I mean, John, that's the best term I've heard. Decay. PGA Tour has decayed in terms of TV ratings.
Yeah.
And where are the stars outside of Xander Schauffele and Scotty Scheffler? And LIV's got all the stars and nobody's paying attention. I mean, I told you a couple tournaments I watched at the end of the season on Sunday, the last round. There were like 30 people on the 18th hole watching the final round of an LIV tournament. You got to be kidding me. Just absolutely amazing. You got an opinion, pro golf fans, you are invited. Fans Forum chat box is now open for you. We do sports talk the way it should be done. Topics on the table, and now it's your turn. Fans Forum. It's brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. Last-minute Christmas shoppers. How about a Dixieline gift card for the guy in your family? Put it as a stocking stuffer. You can get them online or get them at Dixieline Lumber. John, there's a few people here who have opinions. And I'm sure that when it gets time to open up the social media page, I just might check out and let you take all the abuse because I read some of the social media stuff in advance. Wow. Go ahead.
Yeah. Some of them are wow. Okay, let's go here to OG. He says, The best game caller. Great memories listening to Hacksaw call the Chargers and Aztec games.
Yeah, we're going to do something special sometime in January. Time goes by. This is the 30th anniversary of the greatest moment in San Diego Chargers football history. 30th anniversary coming up in January. AFC Championship victory in Pittsburgh and the party in the rain at the stadium. So we'll set aside a show to do a stroll down memory lane. And it's odd we're talking San Diego Chargers football and its great success compared to what just happened on Sunday afternoon, Tampa Bay, what they did to the Bolts at SoFi Stadium. But thank you for the compliment, and we'll try to stoke those memories for you. We'll do something in January.
Yeah, awesome. This is just awesome.
You're right. We are bleeping brilliant.
Yeah, let's move on here. Let's go to Greg. He goes, Lee, I believe if MLB ownership and the MLB Players Union does not agree on a salary cap, then mid-market teams will eventually just see the Dodgers and Yankees in every World Series. What do you think?
Bingo. I've been saying that, and then the second sentence should be, we need a floor to spending. If you're taking revenue sharing, you got to spend that revenue sharing. The floor to spending works in every sport. It's worked in the NFL. It's worked in the NBA. Works in the NHL. Very simply, you can have a hard salary cap, or you can have a luxury tax. And if you go over that limit, you got to pay a tax, and all that money goes into the central fund, which is then shared with all the other markets. But all the other markets are taking the money, and they're operating with $57 million payrolls. If we had a floor to spending, which the bottom floor is, say, $120 million, you're taking revenue sharing, you got to spend $120. That would make more money available for veteran free agents who would sign in Oakland, would sign in Pittsburgh, would sign in the smaller markets, because you have to spend $120. So that'd make those teams better and much more competitive. So it hasn't happened yet. Using a hard salary cap, that's going to be a fight. The union's never going to agree to that. But if you got the luxury tax limit and you pay a steep tax over it, but you're forcing all these other guys that are taking revenue sharing, like Miami and those guys, if you had $120 million you had to spend, you'll get pitchers to go pitch in Miami, and suddenly the Marlins would not be a woeful, begone last place team.
Well, aren't there some teams that get more money in revenue sharing than the total of their payroll? Wasn't that the Oakland A's?
Yes.
And now, granted, you notice how Fisher's starting to spend money now, on trying to get some players there for Oakland. But yeah, they got to do something here. They got to solve it, because there's some owners like Cohen. He doesn't care about the penalties. He just keeps paying.
He's got more money than God.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, and Greg, I think you'd probably agree with me, is it good for baseball to have 5 teams that have all this money, can get any player they want, 5 teams, and have 25 other teams that can't compete? Is that really good for the big game of baseball? Next question.
Okay, let's just go here to Roy. Just a quick shout out. Hello from Chiefs country in the Republic of Missouri.
Oh, best 13-1 team that I don't think has a prayer of being in the Super Bowl, unless something changes in terms of injuries. And now Patrick Mahomes has a high ankle sprain, and those things don't heal in 15 minutes. So suddenly Kansas City's got another injury here after getting guys back. They got Pacheco back, which has brought great energy at running back. Marquise Brown has now been cleared, is practicing this week. He might be ready to go a week from now, but now you got Mahomes hurt. That's a big issue. But Kansas City's 13-1. We can't take that away. But if you have to have Carson Wentz in the playoffs, can Kansas City win with Carson Wentz?
No. I mean, they're barely winning now with Patrick Mahomes, but at least they won comfortably this weekend.
Okay. We'll see. It's great to hear from you from the Independent Republic of Missouri. Hi. Next one.
Okay. Let's go here to Yin. She says, Hacksaw, where do you think Curtis Rourke will go in the NFL draft?
He's the Indiana quarterback vis-a-vis my alma mater, Ohio University. Really good player. But I don't know, because running quarterbacks don't survive in the NFL, and part of his thing is being able to move the pocket and do RPO things. I haven't seen any true draft projections yet, but I would have to think maybe 3rd, 4th, 5th round, or maybe Canada. His brother is doing really well. His brother Nathan was at Ohio U with Curtis, and he set all the records, and he's up in the CFL with the British Columbia Lions, and he signed one of the pricier contracts up there, and he's had some pretty good success. The first time he came to the NFL, never got a chance to play went back to Canada. So Curtis Rourke's real future might be north of the border. Okay, we move on.
Okay, let's go to comment. Yeah, inquiring Canadians want to know if that's a real tree. Spill it, Hacksaw.
Oh, Canada, that's a good-looking tree at this point in time. Is that a good tree? Real tree?
Well, the short answer is no. It's an artificial tree. But we had gone for years going up here to these pinery tree farms and cutting them down ourselves and bringing them in. And after you start to get a little older, and it becomes kind of a pain in the arse, to have to clean up after and worry about the thing catching on fire. I like this artificial tree.
It looks good.
It looks good.
It makes us look better.
Yeah, it does. So,
Great Christmas tree story. 30 seconds. I love dogs, and I've had golden retrievers.
Yeah.
So I had this young golden retriever, and we do go to the pinery, and we do cut the trees, and we have the live trees.
Yeah.
And the needles fall off and all that. And it smells great for 15 minutes. So I have this young golden retriever, and usually he was not allowed to run through the house, but he got out, and he saw the tree, and he saw the shiny objects on the tree, and he went and sniffed and sniffed. He walked around. He raised his leg on the tree.
in the house.
In the house. And then I had another golden earlier, and he was always enthralled by the lights and the shiny bulbs. And he tried to chew the Christmas lights because they were blinking on and off. And then he walked behind the tree because he saw a shiny bulb that attracted him. Walked behind the tree. He knocked the tree over. So Goldens and Christmas trees don't always link well together.
Yeah, Goldens have a personality.
Oh, best dogs in the world.
Yeah.
You saw the story about Kirk Herbstreit's. He's got 3 Goldens and one passed away, and he took the dog on the road with him all the time when he was broadcasting games.
Well, I see him on the set for that college game day.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
Well, his oldest one just passed, but he's got these other Goldens too. Okay, that's our Christmas tree story. Thank you for the compliment. It makes us look good.
It does. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to Jason. Chargers are pretenders. Defense is pathetic. Number 1 score in defense is a worthless stat. Means nothing.
Well, like I said, they were 7-3. And Jim Harbaugh was giving us that tent revival speech about greatness, this, that, and the other. And my response was, well, let's wait till you play somebody. And since then, they almost lost to Burrow, should have lost. Almost lost to Atlanta because Kirk Cousins gave the game away. And then they get punched in the mouth by Baltimore, trampled by Tampa Bay. Now they've lost 3 of their last 4. And now the quarterback's hurt. They got so many people dinged up, and it's a short work week. I mean, they're breathing heavy, picking up the pieces, and they got to play Denver on Thursday. And the Broncos have 9 wins. Broncos, that's a shocker of a story. So the Chargers are not what they were purported to be. I still think they make the playoffs because I think they can beat the Broncos, should definitely post a victory again at New England, and then obviously beat the hapless Raiders. But Harbaugh is going to have to explain to me how they're not going to be one and done in postseason, because this is not a complete team right now.
Well, yeah, they should have beat the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, there's a lot of woulda, coulda, shoulda with the
Pittsburgh
Chargers.
included.
And Pittsburgh, yeah. So, but by the way, Pittsburgh's turned out to be a lot better than we thought they were.
They got 10 wins. How's that possible?
That's amazing to me. Here, the Chargers may not even make the playoffs.
No, they'll make it.
But if they do, they're going to just kind of back in.
What did I say? One and done.
One and done, yeah. But I don't know if they even make it. I mean, Harbaugh has got to be feeling a lot of weight on his shoulders right now. What do you think?
Well, he is, but he had a 3-minute post-game press conference yesterday after the loss, after they got rolled by Tampa. I was like, their season just got torpedoed. Their imagery at that stadium, it was all Tampa Bay Buck fans screaming and yelling for Baker. Mayfield throws 4 touchdowns, and they stampede and run for 222 yards against the vaulted Charger defense.
Well, it was another game where the visiting team had a huge fan base, were the Packer fans in Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean, that was incredible. But the Chargers are just charging. This is just part of the thing that makes them just so hapless and easy to laugh at.
So here's the thing. If you're a big-time Charger fan, or if you're a hater, go to my website. Please read the column I posted today, my one man's opinion column. It's on my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Tell me whether you agree or disagree. Jason, thank you for being with us. Let's move on.
Okay, let's go to Scott. Hacksaw caught a monster greenback on Lake Winnipeg last weekend.
Oh, Canada Network jumping on board. A little wintry to be out there on the lakes in Winnipeg, Manitoba, isn't it? I mean, geez, December is a little tough north of the border in the Great White North.
Is that ice fishing up there?
Could be. Is that what you're making reference to? Monster greenback must be.
I've heard stories about ice fishing and about the ladies of the night that like to go visit.
Oh my goodness. And I got friends that live in Duluth, Minnesota, and that is what they do in the winter. You got to be hardy to want to sit out on Lake Superior and do that.
Oh yeah. Well, they're drinking a lot of beer. They're having a good time.
Oh, I guess they are. Hey, we had one here from our longtime friend, if you could find it, John Hopkins, out of the District of Columbia. He's always got unique opinions, and it takes time to join us. Go ahead.
So the Chargers, this is from John. The Chargers are going to charge her until Spainus sells the team and new owner rebrands them. Until then, karma will torture Dean.
What goes around comes around, damn it. Just absolutely amazing. And I mean, just sit out here, John, you probably didn't get to see it. John's based out of the District of Columbia. By the way, John, would you please settle the mess at the White House? John probably didn't get to see the game, but boy, they got torpedoed by Baker Mayfield. That was about as miserable a second half as I've seen Charger football. And they've played a lot of bad second halves this year. I wish the network announcers would quit praising and canonizing Greg Roman about great play caller, this philosophy, that philosophy. Hell, do you know how many games in the second half they've sucked? And he's calling plays for this offense that sucks in the second half of games. Not good at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's sometimes they're just so freaking hard to figure out, So now that Herbert is supposedly healthy, but he took a long time to recover from that high ankle sprain. Mahomes is going to be out for a while.
Well, I think maybe a week, maybe a couple of weeks. He did not. I saw the video of when he left the locker room. I mean, he looked just desolate from his facial expression. Like, this is pretty significant. High ankle sprain. Herbert's got 3 different injuries, and he's just manning up and hanging in there, and he's taken such wicked hits. I mean, the most disappointing thing to me is that offensive line. They got 3 number 1 picks, and they can't protect him.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I think he's been sacked 41 times, and I keep statistics, and I've had not a minute to be able to go back and research him. I can't imagine how many hits he's taken. I've got the statistics week by week. Just takes me time to go back, but he's been sacked 41 times now. I swear to you, John, he's probably been hit 50 more times in addition to the 41 sacks.
Well, a lot of times when he's in the pocket collapses and it's like really crowded back there, and then he kind of hits a point where he feels like he needs to run, but by then it's too late. And he's usually just lucky to get back to the line of scrimmage.
0 for 6 on third downs, 6 straight possessions, no points on the board. And that's happened on a whole bunch of different Sundays in the second half of every game. And he's such a fierce competitor. He's such a tough dude. He just stands in there and he gets whacked. One of these times he's going to get whacked, he's not going to get up. And how does that happen behind 3 number 1 picks in your offensive line?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, we talked about the turnstiles. Yeah, that was with the Kansas City offensive line. But yeah, the Chargers are not really showing it.
Okay, John, thanks for being with us. Move on.
Okay, let's move on. Let's go here to Chris. And he goes, sounding off from Pasadena. It's amazing to see the 2018 NFL draft members aging like fine wine and becoming historically significant. Baker and Sam Darnold have finally matched up to their promise. Josh Allen is a Hall of Famer, as well as Saquon and Lamar Jackson. UCLA flop Josh Rosen toiling away at Enterprise Rent-A-Car these days. But what a bleeping class.
Well, the greatest quarterback class of all, I guess, was 1984. That was that...
It was 83.
83. Was that Jim Kelly?
John Elway, Todd Blackledge. Yeah. There were 5 of them.
Yeah.
Dan Marino and
well, whatever.
One more. That was a good class.
That's the all-time greatest quarterback class. So this group has bounced back. I mean, Darnold winds up in the right situation with a pretty good team around him. He's got a better Minnesota team around him than he had when he was scuffling with the New York Jets. Josh Allen went through growing pains, but he's become such a stud, Superman, and it's because of the coordinator and how they run what they run, and he's matured into quit throwing the ball into windows you can't get it in there, or throwing across your body and across the field. And he's such a different quarterback in the last 2 years than he was prior to that, because there were stretches of time where, holy cow, he was a turnover machine.
Yeah, I'm happy that Allen is having success. I'm happy for Baker Mayfield. Sam Darnold it seems like just a resurrection, which is kind of cool.
He's gonna be a free agent too.
Good for him
in the open market.
Yeah, and then already the Vikings still have JJ McCarthy. They got another quarterback there too. So, who was the one? It was
Daniel Jones.
Jones. It came from the Giants. So, sounded off from Pasadena. That was a hell of a class, 2018.
Josh Rosen, Enterprise Car Rental. But you know what? The history, if you go back and if you go draft by draft, I swear to you, John, half the quarterbacks that get drafted in the early rounds don't make it. It's a tough line to go from here, where you are a star, to up there, because up there is so hard physically, emotionally, intellectually, because of the defenses, because of defensive coordinators, because everybody's got video on you. I mean, the whole defensive coordinators thing is, I'm going to find a flaw in your game, and I'm going to devise a defense that forces you to do things that you can't do. And I'm going to take away stuff that you can do really well. And that's what they do Sunday by Sunday in the NFL. Which it makes what Jaden Daniels has accomplished just absolutely amazing in Washington, because that's a raw rookie.
Yeah.
And even though he was concerned about hitting a wall at week 15, he was so exhausted from the preparation and then actually playing, and he hasn't given much ground. He's done very well. The flip side of that is Caleb Williams has been sacked 56 times. Or the flip side of that is Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis, who's completing 45% of his passes, is not throwing touchdown passes. Or Bryce Young in Carolina, who I think his record is 4-21 now as a starter. It's really hard.
Yeah, well, I think it is the intellectual side of this, because in high school and college, they can get away with just their athletic abilities.
Sure.
But you got guys, like Mahomes and like Jalen Daniels. You're right. They're on another level intellectually, and they can respond when they take away parts of their offense. They know how to play the game intellectually to find the right guy.
And I swear to you, I will continue to work hard, give you a lot of reps, and make you a good talk show host yet, despite your shortcomings. Let's move on.
Hey, I'm learning here on the job. Okay, let's go here to David. And David says, don't want to tell you amazing gents how to do your show, but I hope you'll be talking about San Diego FC. Their first home game is March 1st. They've been getting a lot of players.
Yeah, they have. They picked up goaltenders. The problem is that these are not household names that we can really identify with. They get a player from Red Bull, New York Red Bull, MLS. They get a player who's a fringe player from the champion LA Galaxy. But these are not marquee names. We're going to have to watch them on the field so we can get a clearer identity as we go forward. But we'll be doing some FC stuff as we move along. And yeah, the season, snap quick. He'll be at Snapdragon Stadium before you know it.
It's going to be fun to root for these guys, because I've always wanted to see an MLS team in San Diego. I saw a picture of Manny Machado wearing their jersey, so it's cool. It's going to be a really nice addition to San Diego sports.
But there'll be a learning curve, because who are these guys? And they're not a lot of household names. It's not like an expansion team in baseball where because these guys are coming from South America. They're coming from Europe.
Well, there's that one guy, Chucky, that's coming over.
Chucky Lozano.
Yeah, so he's a name.
Well, he's a name, and he comes out of Mexico, so it's a little bit of identity there. But you got to have more than one goal scorer there. So we'll see where it goes, and we'll continue to track it.
Okay, let's get Gary in before we go to the social media. He says, hey, I was there at Qualcomm. Stan Humphrey said they did their talking in the papers. We did our talking on the field.
Talking about the Steelers running their mouth.
Yeah, there we go. Standing in the stage with you, Saw. People were rolling kegs of beer into the stadium, hugging the San Diego Police Department. Never a greater night in San Diego history. You were a huge part of that.
Well, it was the greatest moment in San Diego Charger history. And of course, way back in the day, the old American Football League, and they actually had a championship in the glory years of Paul Lowe and Keith Lincoln and
1963.
John Hadel and all those guys. But this was special, and the journey was special. So we'll reserve one of the shows in January as we get set to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Chargers going to the Super Bowl. One of the big disappointments to me is it's like the community has forgotten what these guys accomplished. And granted, they went to the Super Bowl in Miami, and Steve Young lit them up for 60 touchdown passes. And the 49ers had one of the most brilliant offenses I ever saw. And it was just a real hard night. But the journey to get there And what happened that rainy night when we came back from Pittsburgh, it's a memory of a lifetime. I'll never, ever forget it. I've told you the story. I'll tell the listeners again. So I'm the voice of the Chargers, and we go to Pittsburgh. I'm just fearful we're going to get our doors blown off because it's Pittsburgh. It's Three Rivers. It's a terrible town and all that. And they were, Bill Cowher in the jaw, and they were really good. And Pittsburgh went right down the field on the first drive and scored. I thought, oh, Jesus, it's going to be a bad day. Because we had gotten killed the year before by the Miami Dolphins in the playoffs, 31-0. We got lit up in a road game. I thought, oh, this is going to happen. And Bobby Ross he told those guys, we're going to run the ball. And we're going to slow them down. And they did. They ran them, and Natron Means, he ran a sweep right, and he ran over their Pro Bowl corner and safety. He pummeled Rod Woodson and Carnell Lake. And holy cow, the bench exploded when they saw it. And then the Chargers were back in the game, and then boom, 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 boom. And they went down the field, and they eventually scored another touchdown pass to the tight end. And they bomb to Tony Martin, and then the third down play that Dennis Gibson made, or fourth down play, down on the goal line to save the season. So the greatest moment in Charger history. And then coming back in the rain and walking in that stadium. I came through the tunnel with Bobby Ross. And 68,000 fans. You could not hear yourself or hear anybody talk. The noise was so loud. I thought, holy cow, that's what these guys play in front of every Sunday. Greatest moment in Charger history. But it disappoints me. It's like the community has totally forgotten. Can please somebody tell the Union Tribune, the newspaper in town, this is the 30th anniversary. They have never done anything special to celebrate that team and those players. And of course, we don't have a team anymore. Thank you, the greedy Spanos family. But why has the community forgotten it? It's just absolutely amazing to me.
Well, I think it's like selective amnesia, because they're just still so bitter about the team leaving, So and then when you bring up those nights, those memories of that Qualcomm, in the rainy night, then people are like, oh yeah, I do remember that, and those were good times, and the San Diego was coming together, and we were all, like one big love fest. And how quickly we forget about it because we just go back to being angry and just say, yeah, screw you, Spanos.
I will say this. If you Google on YouTube, because I did voice work for the NFL Films, they put together, I think it's called Chargers Road to the Super Bowl, 1994. It's like a 28-minute mini documentary. It incorporates what happened on that Sunday AFC Championship game. So you go find it and watch it. You'll get excited again. You'll get goosebumps. It's pretty cool.
I remember Alpo Papunu catching a touchdown pass and drinking the coconut milk.
Yep.
Those were good days. But that Neil O'Donnell was the quarterback of the Steelers.
That's right. He's the one that threw the looking pass to the running back that Dennis Gibson went, bingo, not on me, not this day.
Yeah, but there's still a lot of stories to tell on that team because so many of them have passed tragically in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think there's 12 of those players who are on that Super Bowl team have passed away, and that doesn't include the assistant coaches who have passed away. Bobby Ross is still living in Richmond, Virginia at age 85 in a retirement community. He's in pretty good health. I get to see him once every spring or every 2 springs when I go back to Virginia. And it's funny. He moved into a retirement community, he and his wife. And he wrote me a note and says, I love this. I thought, well, that's cool. You're in a retirement community. And so I love it. There's 2 other retired coaches that live in this retirement community. One is 90 and the other guy's 92. And they have breakfast every Monday. And they're gone for 4 hours talking about the college games in the ACC and then talking about the NFL games. So Bobby's living the life of leisure and retirement with fellow coaches. It's really funny.
I'd like to be a fly on the wall in those conversations. Wouldn't that be great?
Learn a little bit there.
Yeah.
Thank you for the comment, Gary.
Well, Gary just has a quick follow-up. He says, don't forget to mention that Pittsburgh made a Super Bowl music video.
Yeah. No, they had announced we're making a Super Bowl music video the next night after the AFC Championship game, and they put it in the papers. And greatest story was relayed to me when the players got to the stadium that day to get their ankles taped for the AFC Championship game in the trainers' rooms. They had taken the whole week's worth of sports pages and headlines in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette and I forget, Pittsburgh Press, and they put them up on the walls. And the players are sitting there getting taped that morning for that game. And all they see is this. Super Bowl party planned at 8 o'clock. Super Bowl video, Steelers will be recorded Monday. And they're watching all this. That caught their attention. And they went out there, and then they survived the first series when Pittsburgh scored, and they survived getting stuffed on a 4th down play by Nathan Means, and they got progressively tougher and tougher and tougher as they went. But Google Road to the Super Bowl, NFL Films, Chargers Road to the Super Bowl 1994. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's cool. I had done it. I had totally forgotten about it. Somebody brought it up to me about a year ago, and I found it. I said, this is pretty neat.
It was great times, man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool, the funny stories like this with the Super Bowl videos. Hey, let's go to social media, and here's a really good one here.
Do you want me to check out now so you can just take the abuse?
Okay, here we go. This is from Rolson, and he says, I used to listen to Hacks on AM radio back in the 90s in LA, and just recently noticed his Instagram feed. And I have to say, it's weird looking at his actual face. I have never seen a picture before this, and that's not the face I imagined in my head. Nothing bad, just a strange feeling for me. Kind of like when I met Jim Ladd in person and heard his voice coming out of an actual person instead of my radio.
End of the day. Is the content good? Hell yes. Do we have you hooked? Do we ask for your opinions? Hell yes. What are we arguing about?
It's funny though, because sometimes, when you were doing radio, doing the Chargers broadcast, it's like the voice from God, coming down. And his point, Rolson's point is right, is that when you hear the voice coming out of a human that you've never seen before, it's kind of shocking. For me, the big shock is when I saw Bill King for the first time with his handlebar mustache, because he was the announcer for the Warriors and the Raiders and the A's. So yeah, I mean, you must hear this a lot.
Some. But hey, I was disappointed in you too. So what can I say?
Well, you have a unique look, and you kind of thrive on that. It's all good.
Dave, thank you for joining us. Hope you become a regular. More importantly, Rolson, you tell everybody about who we are and where we are and what we're doing.
Okay, let's talk a little Rams here. This is what is that from DO53? I've been a Ram fan since Roman Gabriel was quarterback. When a team leaves your city, it's difficult to accept the return. I have, but many have not.
Well, it's interesting because they came back and have been to 2 Super Bowls. And right now they are a really dangerous team. And that job that coach Sean McVay has done has been spectacular. So I if you're a pro football fan, you should appreciate what they've rebuilt here. Now, you might be upset that Georgia Frontiere took the bloody thing and went to St. Louis and then sold it and screwed it all up. But at the end of the day, is it NFL football in LA? Yes. Is it the Rams in LA with the colors, the uniforms, the horns on the helmet? Yes. Are they really good? Yes. Appreciate what you have. Charger fans here don't have a franchise, and they are forever bitter. I've made the phrase, and a lot of people put it on social media, that I hope Justin Herbert goes 17-0 because I like the player and respect the quarterback and his intellect, and I hope Dean Spanos, the owner, goes 0-17, and that's all over social media. But at the end of the day, that's our franchise that's up there. It should still be here. You got your franchise back, and boy, you've had success under Stan Kroenke.
It's funny you mentioned Georgia Frontiere.
Yeah,
and I just every once in a while, someone will mention a name, and then I'll go in a rabbit hole and look up their Wikipedia article and go and look up all the NFL stats. And the name was Burt Jones.
Sure, the quarterback.
And then I saw the Sports Illustrated cover with him and Georgia Frontiere, and those were some interesting times back in LA.
Yeah, and of course he was from LSU, drafted by the Colts. Actually, that's where he became a star, and then he finish up at the end with the Rams.
But that was like all in the 1970s, wasn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, but she left a trail of debris and all types of controversy, and then left and went to St. Louis, and then the franchise was sold. And, they did win a Super Bowl. Mike Martz, coach who lives here, I mean, that was the era of Marshall Faulk. And the greatest show on turf. That was Kurt Warner. That was such a spectacular short window that the St. Louis Rams had.
Now, was Falk drafted by the Rams or the Colts?
Colts traded.
Colts. That's incredible that he was traded. He was just such a talent.
Yeah, but it was a contract issue. And so that, and Eric Dickerson got traded too. So, I mean, that was all part of the whole same thing. Free agent, a lot of money, testy relationship, ownership, etc. But
that's Irsay in Indianapolis, right?
Yeah, that's crazy, man.
Right, crazy man. Okay, let's go here. Let's talk a little Padres, and let's go here to, who is this? Our guest scholar, Hacksaw. You and everyone said the same exact stuff last winter. And AJ gave them one of the best chances at a championship, maybe in team history in 2024. You trashed AJ so much, and the Padres were a game away from essentially a guaranteed World Series if they hadn't completely forgotten how to hit the ball in Game 4. Trust in AJ. I'll be looking forward to your hat-eating video after the All-Star break when you admit you were wrong again.
I wasn't wrong last year. They didn't get there. They made the trades, and I said they have 2 years, a 2-year window to do this. After they made the trades, they traded the farm system away a third time, and they got Cease, and of course the contracts to Darvish and to Joe Musgrove and all the other big money extended contracts, traded the farm system away. They had 2 years to get to the World Series. Should have been in the World Series this past year, didn't get it done. Now the question, can they be a World Series team this year if they have to trade Cease and Arise? Because if you're taking guys off this roster that were cornerstones, how do you replace them? Are you getting equal value back? I'm not sure. Trust in AJ? Yes, because he's built it. But there is no future after this year because the farm system's gone. You know, the amazing thing is the Padres have 33 men on their offseason roster, 40-man roster, because there's nobody left to protect that they have to protect because they have nothing left at the upper echelon of the farm system. They had a 2-year window. They just lost this year. You know, when they made this Soto trade, they said, well, we're going to rent him for 3 years. That'll be our window. Well, they got rid of him after 2, got talent back. But now they may be forced to trade some of the talent they got back again. I'm not burying AJ. I question his methodology. I question the contracts they gave out. I question trading the whole bloody farm system away 3 different times in 9 years. So I would hope that they're right there like they were last year. But damn, the division, holy cow, what the Dodgers have done. So you got to go through LA again. And if you don't have Dylan Cease, you don't have a Rise anywhere near the same roster. You're going to argue with me? You can weird at me. Go ahead.
Well, you think about this. In 2022, the Padres almost got to the World Series, right? You know, and they had gotten Soto in that deal. And yeah, we gave up a lot to the Nationals to get Soto. But generally speaking, people were excited about that.
Sure.
They're praising AJ Preller, rockstar GM. He's back. This is great. And then the whole thing went to hell. And by the way, now we're learning about, you know, confirmation of the bad chemistry between Juan Soto and the other players that were there. But that wasn't necessarily AJ's fault. I mean, we were stroking AJ when he made that deal. Well, there's a lot of things that have gone wrong for him that really you can't blame him for.
Well, but you can blame him for the extended contracts that now he can't trade. And you can blame him for trading all these young guys that are cornerstones on other teams. And he's not yet been to a World Series. And you can blame him for the erosion of the farm system again, and again, and he's still not there in the Fall Classic. Can't whitewash what he's done from a business and baseball perspective. Do you hope? Sure. Of course you hope. Has he pulled rabbits out of the hat in the past? Sure. But he hasn't been to the Fall Classic yet. And to me, this is the window, and it's going like this.
Yeah, the window is closing. There are a lot of Padre fans that want to fire AJ, that wanted to fire him years ago. You know, and they're angry about it. But from my point of view, the Padre baseball has never been more exciting than it is now.
I concur. And that's why I did the commentary last week that I think our guest scholar is screeching about. I asked the question on my commentary, on One Man's Opinion. They've raised the ticket prices 50% in 4 years, 50%. And they have drawn record crowds, 3.2 million and 3.3 million last summer. Don't you think ownership owes it to this community, which has filled that stadium and spent wads of money, owe this community to bump this payroll up instead of coming back and saying, you got to cut it below 170, and that means getting rid of a pitcher and getting rid of that first base? Don't you think Padre ownership owes it to you, me, Giant fan co-host here? You tell me. I mean, that's an arguing point that I think we'll have to see. And like I said, the window's tight. I think they got to be a Fall Classic team next season.
Well, I think you have to be realistic, because when Seidler was alive, bless his heart, he was kicking in his own money,
or money on cash calls from the other owners,
or however it was. But, at some point, the ownership is going to say, hey, man, we made an investment. We want to get a return on our investment. We're not going to subsidize this thing. It needs to make money on its own.
It's making money on its own between national TV revenue, TV contracts locally, and 3.3 million. They've never had revenue like this before. But to go from 231 million down to 170 million, and now say, got to cut it further. And you look what's going on up north at Dodger Stadium. Okay, we'll see. They got one. I think they got one more year to see if they can make this work. But how do you make it work if your hand is forced? You had to hit the eject button on a couple more named players.
Well, I think their intent was to try to sign Soto. They thought they'd be able to convince him, right? But it was pretty clear right from the onset he was going to be going to free agency.
I concur. Okay, thank you for the call. Let's do a couple more here.
Okay, let's go here. Talking about, again, L.A., do they support the Chargers or the Rams? This is what Rick said. He goes, let's face it, it's a Raider town. 3 teams wanted Rams, Raiders, and the Chargers. Rams owner knew that if the Raiders came and took over the city, they didn't have a chance. So the other owners voted for him and let the cheapo Charger in.
Well, at the end of the day, the Raiders have a great legacy of fan support. At the end of the day, the franchise was in disarray at the end of Al Davis's life. Mark Davis has taken over. It's gotten worse. Do the Raiders have a lot of fans wearing their colors and their paint? Hell yes. Is the product on the field any good? Absolutely not. Raider fans, you have 2 winning seasons in 22 years. They play Monday Night Football, and you're going to probably be 2-12 after this game. So you can't tell me this is great football. I was told from people I believe who worked in the NFL, the league did not want Mark Davis and a bad business operation in the LA market. They wanted credibility, and that was Stan Kroenke, who paid for the stadium himself. And they wanted a second tenant, and it happened to be Spanos and the Chargers. It was never, ever going to be the Raiders because the Raiders are a bad business operation. They got a gift package to go to Vegas, but again, they're not winning. And the NFL did not want a bad product on the field. That's why Harbaugh wound up with the Chargers. The league went to Spanos, I was told, and said, enough of these mistakes, enough with being cheap. You have to hire a name coach. And when Harbaugh became available, they told him, almost mandated, that's the guy you got to get to fix your own credibility. So there's interest now in the Chargers, but I tend to think the Rams still emotionally own that market.
I don't know if either team owns the market, but I think Rick's right. I think Raider fans are the dominant force in LA, because that's where, Antonio Pierce came from, right? Wasn't he part of that, the growing up with Marcus Allen days of LA Coliseum Raiders?
But Pierce was a Parcells guy. He was a New York Giant, New England Patriot guy.
But didn't he grow up in LA?
He was in Compton.
Yeah, exactly. So, back when the Raiders were playing in LA. So there's just a lot of LA Raider fans that still exist. But, there's a lot of chirping on this particular social media video that you did. Is it which team owns the LA market? A lot of fans are also saying that the Rams and the Chargers are making progress. So it was dire a few years ago for the Chargers. No one wanted it.
Nobody went there.
But now it's starting to change.
Well, maybe, but if that was the case, then why as Baker Mayfield was throwing 4 touchdowns and they were piling up 505 yards yesterday, why did that sound like a Buccaneer home game?
Because Southern California, everybody's from somewhere else.
Okay. All right, let's do one more social media comment.
Okay, let's go here. This is a good one. This is from Big Run. He goes, this guy has been negative since Mighty 1090 days with Scott and BR. I like this team, talk about the Chargers, better than the last 5 years.
Well, they weren't real good. I think there's great potential here, but they've disappointed. And I'm dealing with the Chargers on a week-by-week basis. They have now lost 3 of 4. They've been blasted a lot by other teams that were much deeper, much more physical, etc. You got to deal with where you are right now. Now, you can be a fan. That's fine if you like the powder blues and the lightning bolt, and I happen to have great regard for Justin Herbert, and there's no doubt that Harbaugh's track record is spectacular. They probably need another Joe Ortiz draft to add on to what they currently have. But they're going in the wrong direction right now. Negative. What's there to be negative? You're dealing with what you are. You hired, you screwed Ross. You screwed Schottenheimer. You gave us Mike McCoy. Then you gave us Anthony Lynn. Then you gave us Brandon Staley. Well, I'm supposed to paint a picture that everything is beautiful while you're getting your doors blown off? A year ago this week, 63-21 Raiders in Las Vegas over the Chargers.
Oh, that was brutal.
Yes. And I'm supposed to paint a picture that everything's beautiful? Now, I don't know. Maybe a big run is related to Spanos. End of the day, I'm dealing with the information that's right there in front of you. And last I checked, my podcast, I'll tell you what I think. When it's your podcast, you can tell me what you think, and then I can argue with you as a listener, caller, viewer, just like you're arguing with me right now. I'm not negative. I'm just dealing with what they are. Please tell me since the Marty Schottenheimer, Bobby Ross days, have they accomplished bleep? Big run? You got a response?
Yeah, because in the Schottenheimer days, the best game, really the highest level they made was that AFC Championship game in New England, right?
Yeah, Rivers, Gates, Tomlinson, but those guys were hurt.
Yeah, I remember that Rivers was playing without an ACL or something like that.
He had had knee surgery, and Tomlinson got hurt, and he was on the bench.
Yeah, so, they've never gotten back to that. The last 5 years have just been sort of sputtering, and, remember they got blown out by the Jaguars a few years ago. So, but it is funny that you get criticism and praise from all different angles, We love Hacksaw, thanks for the memories, and you're so negative, and blah, blah, blah. But, that's the nature of being, essentially like a columnist, where you're putting opinions on the table
based on fact.
Yeah. So, but you like to stir the pot too. I mean, you're good at that.
I like to tell people what I think.
Right.
Big run. Thanks for participating. I'll wait for your next take. Good to have you with us. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this podcast. We do this on Mondays at 1 p.m. We do this on Thursdays at 1 p.m. Want you to share, want you to follow, tell everybody what we do on social media with this podcast. Want you to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way you'll get the alerts every time I put something up. You do read sports. Aside from Raider fan, you do know how to read, don't you? I want you, I shouldn't have said that. Go to my website, leehacksawhamilton.com. I write on it every day of the week. It's there first thing every morning. I think you'll be fascinated. You're a Charger fan lover, Charger fan hater. Read my one man's opinion column I wrote today, because I had some things to say in the aftermath of Tampa Bay trashing the Bolts yesterday at SoFi Stadium. We'll be back here on Thursday, starting at 1 p.m., going towards the great sports weekend. We'll have more free agent signings in baseball, I guarantee you. And then obviously we'll have another weekend of must-win games for teams fighting for their playoffs lives. John, take a deep breath, charge the batteries, because we will argue again on Thursday.
Raiders are going to get killed tonight, but I'm going to still root for them. I still hope they have some success.
Good to see you. Hey, and thanks for having you be part of this. This podcast brought to you by Dixieline Lumber and Home Centers, 9 store locations to serve you. Thanks for being with us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast apps. For more content, go to leehacksawhamilton.com.